From the ocean to the vineyards, Sonoma County draws people from all over the world to experience the experience. But the best is in the forests, surrounded by the towering redwoods. Some are more than 1,000 years old. In the late 1800s, lumber mills among these trees helped build the great cities of California. A piece of history almost gone. But a handful of volunteers who look and sound like they are right out of the old days have brought it all back to life.
It's a hidden gem. And going back in time. This place is alive.
This is real history.
At the Sturgeons Saw Mill outside Sebastopol, California, they're making magic with century-old machines, lots of sweat and muscle, and most important, all that steam.
You can hear it just chug, chug, chug.
Thump, thump, thump.
Bob Sturgeon's grandfather, Wade, built the mill in Coleman Valley, high in California's Coast Range, some 70 miles north of San Francisco. In 1924, it was moved, piece by piece, to its current location.
In those days, you took the mill to where the logs were because we didn't have the trucks that they have today. They tore it down at Coleman Valley, numbered everything.
And they put it on wagons and skids, and they drug it 7 miles inland from the ocean to this location here. They found a piece of land that had the same topography, a creek running by, and they put the mill back together.
And it remained a working mill till 1963, when it was shut down.
My dad was going to call in the scrappers.
Harvey Henningson's father co-owned the mill with Bob's father, Ralph, when they decided to close it.
I begged him not to cut up the steam engines, and he said, if you want it so bad, you can have it.
It nearly all ended for good, until one day...
Then we got together 15 years ago and had a big barbecue of everybody that used to work here. 7 of us said, I wonder if this sucker will still run. Finally, we got the biggest air compressor that they made. It was about the size of a Volkswagen bus, and that did a good job, except there was no steam exhaust. It just wasn't the same.
So, in 2006, they brought in a steam boiler, and the rest is, as they say, history.
Oh, it's amazing how much history is here. And the unique thing about this mill is it wasn't something that was built from scraps as a museum. This was actually a working sawmill that was preserved.
Tom Schaefer was just a young kid when his grandfather was running the mill.
It was a great place to grow up, kind of just magical as a kid.
And it's just as magical for kids today. The magic of recreating history. 4 times a year, they open the mill to the public, fire up the boiler, run the steam through the pipes, and blow the signal. The curious pour in by the hundreds. The show is about to begin. But first, a quick lesson. The centerpiece of the mill was built in the 1880s. The Joshua Hendy head rig has 2 circular saws, the lower one 60 inches in diameter, the upper one is 42 inches. The logs are stacked, sorted, and pulled in by the landing man. They call this yarding the logs. The hook he's using is called a becket. Inside, the sawyer controls the chain to the becket, getting the log onto the carriage. He will then push and pull the levers to the carriage, moving it up and down a track.
This is number 1 man in the sawmill.
And the sawyer is the man on the stick that makes the carriage go back and forth.
He's also in charge of getting the logs into position for the block setter.
On the carriage is the block setter.
His job is to make sure the log is properly secured to the carriage.
He hammers the stakes, called dogs, into the backside of the log to lock it into place.
Why do they call them dogs?
Because they bite the log like a dog, I think.
It's called dog in the log.
Dog in the log bites the log and holds it.
And to advance the log into the saw so that you can make 2x or 4x or 6x lumber.
The sawyer signals the block setter using sign language.
Really a concert between the block setter and the sawyer. You'll notice that they're mostly doing things like this instead of yelling at each other because you can't hear each other in the mill.
With an all clear, the sawyer gets the carriage rolling, feeding the log into the head rig. On the other side of the blade, the off-bearers pull down the large slabs. Back and forth and back and forth, a steady stream of feeding logs into the teeth of the blades. Now comes the heavy lifting as the off-bearers pull the slabs away from the log. Using leverage and just pure muscle, the off-bearers feed the slabs into the edger saw. They can preset several blades, getting different widths. It rips just like butter. An assembly line of workers push and pull and manhandle the lumber down the line in choreographed moves.
The guys running around and doing their jobs, and it's amazing. It's like watching a ballet. They all know exactly what to do.
The lumber is pushed down the line to the trim saw, cut into certain lengths, and moved into the yard. The lumber is then sent through this old planer. With belts flying, it smooths the finish the old way. It all makes for quite a show, but what really makes the place special can be found under the sawmill. Down here, a diesel-powered boiler is making tons and tons of steam.
You take a gallon of water and it'll expand 11,000 times. And you put that in a vessel and build pressure. As you release it, it expands, and that's what gives it its power.
The building is just bleeding steam. Everywhere you look. From the boiler, it feeds down the line past these funny-looking machines.
That is the governor that controls the speed. That's probably the number one asked question is, what's that spinny thing on top?
Past the governor, the steam turns wheels, and the wheels turn belts, and they turn more wheels and more belts. A living 1880s assembly line.
You can hear when you get into a big log, you can hear the engines chug, and you'll see the exhaust by the front deck up there that is really, it's pumping out. You can hear it.
It sounds like nothing else that you've ever heard. It sounds like a human being breathing. It goes
All because of the steam, people come from all over the world to see this mill.
It's really something remarkable to see, well worth traveling across the country for.
Such a beautiful thing to see that this still exists and it's being, kept up by all these people that really love running the thing.
On these steam-up weekends, visitors are paired with a docent and get to tour the grounds. A big hit is the steam donkey. In the old days, these would be dragged into the forest to process the logs on the spot.
So they would down the logs, they'd buck them up, and then they drag these across the skid road. They'd stretch a cable out, sometimes a half-mile long, and they would just literally drag it through the forest.
That we are working on restoring.
The docents take visitors right into the guts of the mill, just inches from all the action. They all love the big saw. Faces, young and old, are keyed in on the action. The noise, the flying sawdust, the smells. Everything gets a reaction.
I'm going to come again tomorrow, and I can't wait to show some more friends. I'm astounded.
It's like stepping back in time. And I can't believe that it looks the way that it does even today.
This is what America was built on.
It really is a place kids adore.
What was your favorite thing that you saw?
I think the horse thing.
The donkey?
Yeah,
You like the donkey, the steam donkey?
We loved it. What did you think about it?
I like when they chop the wood.
Yeah.
Kids really get a kick out of watching how they sharpen the big saw blades. Slow grinding one tooth at a time. On this day, the youngest visitor was 3-month-old Sophia. But the ages are all over the map, and it's an especially big event for fathers.
On Father's Day, we get so many people here because they have made it a tradition.
4 times a year, the volunteers host school kids from all over the region. Some have never seen the redwoods before.
And these guys came off the bus here, they couldn't believe this place. They never seen anything like it, the kids. They just was at awe.
One of the kids I know heard her say, I didn't realize they had these big trees like this around here anymore. So, they just don't see it.
But there's one thing they won't show the kids or the adults: how the old-timers dealt with the really big logs.
On Sunday afternoons after church, my dad would come out here and blow logs in half because they were too big to get into the mill.
Every tree has a wind check, a stress crack. They would drill for the powder on this crack.
They're boring a hole in this log right here, loading it with black powder. When he set the charge off, it went boom, and the ground shook and the logs just popped right open.
And by the way, they stored the black powder in the office, near the wood stove. On tour days, guests can buy lunch at the mill and hang with the volunteers, all loaded with stories and pride. The volunteers are the ones keeping the mill running, passing on the tricks of the old ways. It's emotional for them, this special place in the hills.
They love this place. And that's all of us on the crew even love it more.
It's just living history.
It moves, it vibrates.
Everything is an original piece of history.
You'll never find this in any other place.
It's just like we turned the page back in the 1850s.
There is much pride from the men and women who have saved this classic piece of California history. You can bet Wade Sturgeon would be thrilled to see his mill in the redwoods alive again.